Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has released a statement on social media saying, with the approval of the first phase of the plan, all our hostages will be brought home. This is a diplomatic success and a national and moral victory for the state of Israel. From the beginning, I made it clear we will not rest until all our hostages return and all our goals are achieved. Through steadfast resolve, powerful military action and the great efforts of our great friend and ally, President Trump, we have reached this critical turning point. I thank President Trump for his leadership, his partnership and his unwavering commitment to the safety of Israel and the freedom of our hostages. Families of the Israeli captives have released a video message thanking the US President for his role in securing the ceasefire deal, which includes the release of their loved ones.
We are the families of hostages come here to Washington, D.C. this week to mark the October 7th attack against our people when our loved ones were captured by Hamas terrorists. Yesterday, we gathered here in the Sukkah of Hope with the Trump administration. And today, President Trump has done it. He announced just now that our loved ones, the hostages, are coming home. We will not stop fighting until we see the last of the 48 return to their family, those who were murdered in captivity, buried in the land of Israel, those who are still alive, walking through the border and reuniting with us, the families. Thank you, President Trump, for your courage. Thank you, the Trump administration, for doing everything you can to bring them home. Let's do it.
And in Tel Aviv, the families of captives held in Gaza have been told their loved ones will be returning home. They've campaigned consistently against Israel's war and demanded a ceasefire. About 48 captives are still held in Gaza, 20 of whom are believed to be alive. US President Donald Trump told Fox News the captives will probably be released on Monday.
President Trump, thank you very much. אנחנו מודים לו. הילדים שלנו לא חוזרים הביתה בלעדיו.
We will continue until the last captive comes home. We continue and do not stop. To the people of Israel, thank you. To the soldiers, to the security forces, to everyone who had a part in this moment, the time has come to return home.
I said that at the very least, first of all, they should bring back the living. We will rejoice with the families, who are our families, and only after that bring back the fallen, so that we can mourn in the private space of the nation. But first of all, bring back the living.
Right, Antony Lowenstein joins us now from Sydney. He's an independent journalist and the author of The Palestine Laboratory. That's a book on the Israeli arms and surveillance industry. Talk us through this, because there's got to be a lot of pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu here. Pressure from his own political coalition or partners. There's got to be pressure from the United States politically. There's also pressure from the families of those who have loved ones being in Gaza. What has been the most impact on him?
Look, within Israel itself now, Netanyahu is less popular than he has been for a number of months. You're right, within the Israeli government, his own coalition, there's a number of key people, Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, who don't want the end of the war. In fact, they wanted to continue and remove all Palestinians from Gaza. Look, in the end, I think this was pushed, obviously, by elements of the Trump administration, Trump himself. And let's be clear, the vast bulk of the genocide occurred during the Biden administration. And although, yes, clearly since January when Trump took over, there's been mass killings and genocide continuing. This is no defense of Trump. But Trump has put far more pressure on Israel than Biden ever did. And so we have got to this point now where 2 years after this insane, counterproductive, violent genocide that has been going on, the war will hopefully end. And I say hopefully because anyone who knows anything about recent history will know that it's not really that easy to trust the Israeli agenda, Netanyahu and the Israeli government, because let's be clear, within Israel itself, yes, there's massive pressure to end the war and get the hostages out. What there is not, though, is pressure to actually see Palestinians in Gaza, let alone the West Bank, as equal, to give them rights, let alone a state. So we are, yes, at a cautiously optimistic point. Everyone who's been looking at this issue, writing about it, spending time there, particularly Palestinians in Gaza, hostage families, want the war to end. This is a no-brainer. It has to end. But what happens next, and will it last, is the real question moving forward to me.
So, Antony, you raise a really interesting point there, because the families who have captives being held in Gaza, they want the war to end because they want their loved ones back in Israel. But will that pressure continue once those people have returned?
Well, one of the problems that Israel has, and you mentioned this just before, is its growing isolation internationally. I've spent a lot of time in the last 10 years looking at the Israeli arms industry, surveillance industry, and that's been a key backbone of the country. In 2024, the country made $15 billion on these issues. It's a massive part of their economy, and it's relatively stayed pretty stable. In fact, since the Gaza genocide, a lot of countries want the equipment and the drones that Israel is testing on Palestinians in Gaza. However, in the last few months, for the first time in living memory, a number of countries, mostly Spain, have stopped buying those weapons, have in fact cut contracts to a roughly worth about $1 billion. If that continues, and I hope many other countries, if the war in Gaza ends, do not continue to buy Israeli weapons, surveillance tech, AI warfare, the Israeli economy will suffer, and rightly so. And this concept of Israeli isolation is something that many advocates of Palestine rightly will push, that because the war ends, the challenge now is accountability. All the soldiers and generals and politicians who have pursued this genocide, this is not just about Netanyahu. He should be in The Hague, no question about that. But a genocide is not committed by one man. It's committed by huge numbers of people in the Israeli army, in the military and elsewhere, including, frankly, many in the Israeli press, who backed the genocide, who advocated and said it should deepen and increase. They need to be held to account. And I think what you will find in the coming years is a lot of these Israeli soldiers and generals are going to have to be careful where they travel, because I know a lot of legal experts looking to try to prosecute these people in international courts for their actions in the last 2 years, particularly in Gaza.
We talk about accountability here, Antony, but there's got to be some cognitive dissonance going on when you talk about what your expectation is versus what countries have actually been doing. The arms industry in particular, we have seen countries recognise the need for a Palestinian state, at the same time still supplying parts for fighter jets to Israel. So how do you get over that push-pull where there is some politician standing in front of you telling the world that they believe there should be a Palestinian state, and at the same time they are still sending weaponry to Israel to help them be complicit in this genocide?
Look, my eyes are open. I'm not naive by any means. And you're absolutely right that many of these nations, Australia, England and others, Germany, who have called for the end of the war, and some of those obviously recognised Palestine recently, are still sending weapons and weapons parts. I think this accountability is likely to start in the global south. It's not going to start in Washington or London or Paris, frankly, or Berlin. It's going to start in the global south, where Israeli soldiers or generals go on holiday and they are found to be accused of serious allegations of war crimes in Gaza. So much of what's been happening in the last 2 years in Gaza has been captured by Israeli soldiers themselves, proud of what they are doing. The dehumanization, the killing, the executions, the starvation, a lot of that has been captured by their own social media, by their own Instagram or TikTok, and that is used and will be used in coming years in court cases. So I'm not naive about this is going to happen tomorrow or next week. I'm well aware of that. But I think what you will find is a global push for some kind of accountability. The ICC, International Criminal Court, is on its knees at the moment. The Trump administration is trying to suffocate it. I do note that just this week, in fact, a person deeply involved in the genocide in Darfur was found guilty. So the ICC does still continue its vital work. But until there is accountability for Israeli crimes and those who were complicit with them, including Western leaders, arms dealers, arms companies, then this situation can only repeat, because Israel only gets away with this for so long because of the impunity, and that has to stop now.
Antony Lowenstein, thank you very much for joining us and for your insight.
Thank you.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.